The current left seems to be a product of the 1960s. How a left, which intended to liberate customs and ideas from a restrictive society, became restrictive in its own towards politically incorrect ideas. Did it become part of the establishment? Yeah, actually, it did in part become part of the establishment. And this is a point that we've been making for years, since before Evergreen blew up, really, that in part, liberals should be celebrating and recognized for the fact that many of the things that they, before our time, but we were fighting for with regard to actual civil rights and second wave feminism, not the later waves, but and just equality of opportunity for people regardless of demographics. And things like restricted working hours and child labor laws, like all of these are actually wins for liberals who became the establishment to some degree.
They became the establishment. Becoming the establishment makes you conservative unless you have a very great strength of character. And I don't mean that conservatives don't have strength of character, but what I mean is that when you have a lot to lose, your tendency to want to conserve the things that got it for you is so high that you don't necessarily update when you should. So that process has, as I think I did a pretty good job on Joe Rogan's program of explaining, that process has frozen normal, regular folks out of a lot of the well-being that society generates, and they're pissed, and that's why they're in the street, and they're not wrong. It is rigged against them, and it's not evenly rigged. It's rigged against some populations more than others, which explains the sort of fusion of Occupy with Black Lives Matter. But the point also, though, is intersectionality is a new solution to an old problem. And unfortunately, the old problem is when you don't have growth to offer people who are demanding growth. When growth makes us feel good because things are getting better, right? And you don't have any growth to offer them, you figure out how you can get some phony growth. And you can get phony growth in a number of ways. You can steal it from the future and make the future worse in order to make the present feel better. Or you can steal it from people who can't defend themselves. So we've got a demographic problem in which corrupt elites in both parties are not sharing well-being that they have earned through what Jim Rutt would call money-on-money returns, what I would say rent-seeking. But those people are not ready to share, and instead of sharing, what they've decided to do is take people who are aggrieved and point them at people who can't defend themselves. It's not that different from what happened in Weimar Germany. Blaming the Jews justified stealing stuff from them and giving it to other people who wanted growth, and the German apparatus couldn't provide it, right? So this is an old trick. Now, in this case, the intersectional version is new. The intersectional version says you can take it from white people because they deserve it. That's what it is. And the point is that's cheaper than sharing. I know my sister-in-law makes a point like this. I've been making that point for a very long time, that instead of sharing what has been hoarded, you can point people at other people they're now allowed to steal from. And, you can just take that sentence and map it onto all of the things that we are now told are desirable. Why would you get rid of the police? Well, it's certainly going to allow you to steal from people you've now been told you're entitled to steal from, right? It's not that complicated. So is that the revolution you want? Sure as hell ain't the one I want.